I still remember the way the city looked that night. Silver lights reflected on wet pavement, like scattered pieces of a dream. I was holding his hand, my heart beating faster than usual, because I was sure everything was finally falling into place. After all those months of longing, of waiting for him to come back from his endless business trips, we were finally together, really together. His name was Daniel. He had that quiet confidence that drew everyone in. The kind of man who didn't need to raise his voice to be noticed. He always smelled of expensive cologne and faraway places. When he smiled, it felt like the world bent slightly toward me, as if the universe itself approved. We'd been together for nearly a year. He had a demanding job, one that kept him traveling from city to city. But I told myself that love could survive the distance. It had to. He helped me rent my apartment, left his shirts in my closet, his toothbrush by my sink. Little signs that said, "You belong to me." I believed him. I wanted to. A few weeks ago, I found out I was pregnant. When the 2 lines appeared on the test, I laughed and cried all at once. I imagined his reaction. That soft, astonished smile. Maybe a kiss on my forehead. Maybe even a quiet, "We'll get through this together." So when my best friends invited me to their wedding anniversary dinner, I thought, this is it. The perfect moment. I'd tell him the news, surrounded by laughter, music, and the people I loved most. I pictured him holding my hand, smiling proudly. Maybe even telling everyone before I could. When I asked if he would come, he hesitated. He said he had another trip, that he wasn't sure he could make it. But then he looked at me, really looked, and said, "For you, I'll find a way." I believed him. That night he arrived just before dinner. A little tired, a little distant, but beautiful as ever. He wore that grey suit I loved, the one that made him look both powerful and fragile. My friends loved him instantly. He knew how to charm a crowd. The perfect gentleman, the perfect lover. We were seated by the window. The city stretched outside like a living painting. My fingers brushed the small envelope in my purse. The ultrasound picture I planned to show him after dessert. I couldn't stop smiling. Then my friend Emma leaned toward me and said, "Oh, one of my friends is running late. Her flight was delayed from another city. She'll be here soon." I nodded absently, barely listening. I was too busy watching Daniel pour me a glass of wine he wouldn't let me drink. He was attentive, playful, almost too perfect. And then the door opened. A woman walked in, shaking off the cold. Tall, elegant, with the kind of presence that silences a room without effort. She looked around, her eyes scanning faces, until they landed on us, on him. The air changed. Daniel froze. His hand, which had been resting on mine, went rigid. Colour drained from his face, leaving him pale, ghost-like. I turned to him, confused, my heart beginning to stutter. The woman, Emma's friend, stared at him for a long, unbearable moment. Then her gaze shifted to me. Her expression softened into something I couldn't name. Pity, maybe. "Lydia?" she said quietly. He didn't answer. Something inside me began to fracture. Emma was smiling, oblivious. "Oh, you two know each other?" she asked, brightly. Silence, the kind that screams louder than words. Finally, Lydia spoke. "Yes," she said, her voice trembling. He's my brother-in-law." The words didn't make sense at first. They hung in the air like smoke, impossible to grasp. But Daniel's eyes, those beautiful, lying eyes, told me everything. Married, children, a whole life in another city. A family waiting for him while he was here. holding me, whispering that I was the only one. And Lydia, oh God, the way she looked at him. The way he looked back. There was history there. Something darker, heavier. Later I would learn the truth, that he hadn't just betrayed his wife with me, but with her sister. That night I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I just sat there, my hand still resting on the table, trembling slightly. He tried to speak, some excuse, some meaningless apology, but I couldn't hear it. The sound around us faded, like music played underwater. All I could think of was the tiny heartbeat growing inside me, innocent, unaware. Love, I realized, isn't always light. Sometimes it's a mirror that shows you the darkest corners of yourself, the parts that believed, that hoped, that waited. I left before dessert. The ultrasound picture was still in my purse, folded neatly, untouched. Now, when I look back, I don't hate him. I don't even miss him. What I miss is the idea of him, the dream I built around a man who never existed. And yet, as I feel the child move inside me now, I understand something I didn't before. From that lie, something true will be born. Not love for him, but love for life itself. The night air hit me like a slap. Cold, sharp, too real. I didn't even remember walking out of the restaurant. Just the sound of my heels on the pavement, uneven, frantic, echoing through the empty street. My hands were shaking. My body was trembling. Not from the cold, but from something deeper. The violent stillness that comes when the truth finally lands. The city lights blurred in my eyes as I walked, not knowing where I was going. Cars passed, laughter spilled from open windows, but it all felt far away, like I was underwater and the world was happening above the surface. He didn't come after me. I kept expecting to hear his voice behind me, calling my name, begging for forgiveness, offering explanations I didn't want to hear. But the silence stretched on, and with every step I took, it became clearer. He wasn't going to follow. When I reached my apartment, I sat on the floor, still in my dress, still wearing his scent. I looked around, his jacket on the chair, his book on the table, the faint trace of his cologne lingering in the air. Everything screamed him, and yet he had never really been there. I took the ultrasound photo from my purse and stared at it for a long time. 2 small words in black ink at the top. 8 weeks. 8 weeks of hope. 8 weeks of love. 8 weeks of lies. That night, I cried until there was nothing left to cry. Until the sobs turned into silence, and silence turned into sleep. When I woke up, the world hadn't ended. The sun rose, indifferent and golden, spilling through the window as if nothing had happened. Birds were singing. The city was alive. But I wasn't the same. I called in sick to work. I ignored my friends' messages. I spent hours walking through the city, aimlessly, just to feel something other than the hollow ache in my chest. Then one evening, my phone buzzed. His name, Daniel. I stared at the screen until it stopped ringing. A minute later, another call, then a message. Please, Lydia, I need to see you. Please. For a moment, my heart betrayed me. It remembered his hands, his warmth, the way he'd whisper my name like it was a prayer. I wanted to believe he'd come to fix everything, to tell me it wasn't true, that he loved me, that I wasn't just a mistake. But deep down, I knew better. I met him anyway. We sat in his car by the river, the city lights trembling in the dark water. He looked tired, older, like a man who'd been caught in his own web. I never wanted to hurt you, he said quietly. Then why did you? I asked. He didn't answer. He just looked at me with those same eyes. The ones that once made me feel safe, now only full of guilt. I can't leave my family, he said finally. My kids, they need me. I nodded, my throat burning. And what about me? What about our child? He flinched. For a second his mask cracked. Then he whispered, I'll take care of you. I'll take care of both of you. You'll never need anything. That was when I realized he was offering me money, not love, responsibility, not tenderness, pity, not partnership. I opened the door and stepped out into the cold. I don't need anything from you, I said. Not your money, not your guilt, and definitely not your lies. He didn't try to stop me. I walked away, feeling strangely calm. It was over. The illusion, the pretending, the waiting. The love I thought would save me had destroyed itself. Months passed. Spring melted into summer. My belly grew round and beautiful. I started talking to the baby, softly, like a secret between us. I told it about the stars, about the sound of rain on the window, about how sometimes the most painful endings lead to the most unexpected beginnings. Sometimes I still thought about him, not with hate, not even with sadness, but with a quiet kind of acceptance. He was a lesson, not a tragedy. The day my child was born, the world outside was raining. The same silver rain as that night when everything fell apart. But this time, I wasn't broken. I was whole. When I held my baby for the first time, I whispered, You are everything true that came out of everything false. And in that moment, I understood. The greatest love story of my life wasn't the one I had with him. It was the one I was just beginning, with myself. 3 years have passed. 3 long, beautiful, brutal years. If someone had told me back then that the girl who ran through the cold night with mascara streaked down her face would one day wake up smiling again, I wouldn't have believed them. But time, I've learned, has a strange kind of mercy. It doesn't erase the pain, but it softens it, reshapes it, turns it into something bearable. My son, Noah, is 3 now. His laugh fills every corner of our small apartment. He has Daniel's eyes, that deep grey that seems to hold the whole sky. But when I look into them, I don't see the past. I see life, new and untarnished. I built a world for us, piece by piece. I went back to work, finished the design course I'd abandoned when I met him, started freelancing. My days became full, not with romance or drama, but with colours, textures, laughter, and tiny sticky handprints on every surface of my home. Sometimes I still think about Daniel, not often and not with anger, more like remembering a song that once meant everything, but now only drifts faintly in the background. I never heard from him again after that night by the river. He disappeared from my life as completely as he'd entered it. Sudden, magnetic, and then gone. And I was fine with that. Until one ordinary afternoon in early autumn. It was raining. The soft, whispering kind of rain that turns the city into a watercolor painting. I had just finished a client meeting at a cafe downtown and was packing up my laptop when the door opened and a man walked in, shaking off the rain from his coat. At first, I didn't look, but when I did, my breath caught. No, not Daniel. But for a moment, my heart fooled me. The same height, the same quiet confidence. Then he looked up and smiled, and it wasn't Daniel's smile at all. It was warmer, simpler, real. He ordered coffee and sat near the window, flipping through a notebook filled with sketches. A designer, maybe. An architect. Something about him felt grounded, steady. Like the earth itself. When he noticed me glancing, he smiled again. That small, knowing smile that felt like sunlight breaking through grey clouds. A few minutes later, the cafe's Wi-Fi crashed, and I swore under my breath. He looked over. "Need a hotspot?" he asked, lifting his phone. I hesitated, then laughed. "Is that your way of offering me free Wi-Fi or starting a conversation?" "Can't it be both?" he said. And just like that, something in me opened. Something I thought had been sealed forever. His name was Ethan. He was an architect. Gentle, so thoughtful, with hands that looked like they'd built more than buildings. He had a way of listening that made silence feel comfortable, not awkward. Over the next few weeks, we kept running into each other. At cafes, at the park where I took Noah, at the bookstore near my street. It felt coincidental, then fated. Eventually, he asked if I wanted to have coffee on purpose this time. I said yes. He didn't ask too many questions about my past. He didn't pry. He noticed the ring I wasn't wearing and the shadow in my eyes, and he just let it be. One evening, when he walked me and Noah home, my son ran up to him and offered his tiny hand. Ethan took it without hesitation, as if he'd been waiting for it all his life. That simple gesture broke something open in me. I didn't know was still locked. That night, after I put Noah to bed, I stood by the window and whispered, "Maybe it's okay to love again." A few months later, I saw Daniel again. It was by chance, a grocery store of all places. He looked older, thinner, worn down. Our eyes met for just a second, but in that second, I saw everything. Regret, exhaustion, emptiness. He opened his mouth as if to speak, but I just smiled softly and said, "Take care, Daniel." Then I walked away. No tears, no shaking, just peace. When I got home, Noah was drawing. Stick figures, rainbows, a little family holding hands. He looked up and said, "Mama, this one's you, and that's me, and that's Ethan." I froze for a moment, then smiled. Outside, the rain had stopped. The city lights were reflected in the puddles, like stars fallen to earth. And for the first time in years, I realized I wasn't waiting for anything anymore. The story wasn't about the man who broke me. It was about the woman who learned to heal. 10 years. It's strange how time moves. How something that once felt like the end of the world can years later become nothing more than a story you tell with a soft smile. Noah is 10 now. Taller, curious, full of life. His laughter fills every room like sunlight through open windows. Sometimes I look at him and still can't believe that once he was just a heartbeat on an ultrasound. A secret I carried inside me through all that darkness. We live in a small house by the sea now. It's quiet here, peaceful. Mornings begin with the cry of gulls and the sound of waves brushing against the shore. Ethan and I built this home together, not just with wood and glass, but with patience, kindness, and every small moment we refused to take for granted. We never rushed things. Love with him was nothing like the wild storm I once mistook for passion. It was steady, warm, like the tide that always comes back. Noah adores him. Sometimes I catch them building sandcastles together, deep in conversation about dragons, rockets, or how waves are just the ocean breathing. I watch them from the porch with a cup of tea in my hands, and something in me swells. A quiet, profound gratitude. A few weeks ago, Ethan proposed. It wasn't grand or cinematic. There were no roses or candlelight dinners. It was just us, standing barefoot on the beach at sunset, the sky painted in gold and violet. He took my hand, and with that calm voice that always feels like home, said, "I know you've been through storms, But I want to spend the rest of my life proving that calm can be beautiful too. And I cried. Not the broken kind of crying, but the soft kind that comes when you realize you made it. That love can be reborn. That hearts do heal. The wedding is today. It's small. Just a few friends, some laughter, and the sea whispering in the background. I wear a simple white dress. My hair loose, the wind playing with it like a friend. Noah stands proudly beside Ethan, holding the rings. As we exchange vows, I catch a glimpse of the horizon, endless and shimmering. I think about that girl from 10 years ago, the one who stood under the rain with a shattered heart, and a secret she was too scared to speak aloud. If I could reach through time and whisper something to her, I'd tell her this. You will survive this. You will love again. And one day, you'll wake up and realize that the pain didn't destroy you. It shaped you into someone stronger, softer, wiser. After the ceremony, as the guests scatter across the beach and the first stars begin to appear, I walk down to the water's edge. The sea is calm, reflecting the sky like glass. I dip my fingers into the cool water, close my eyes, and whisper a quiet thank you. To the past, to the lessons, to the pain that taught me how to love. Behind me, I hear Noah's laughter and Ethan's voice calling my name. When I turn around, I see them, my family, silhouetted against the fading light. And in that moment, I realize every ending I once feared was only leading me here, to this peace, this love, this life. The rain is gone. The light remains.